Camilla Andrade was 32 years old, the owner of one of the largest luxury hotel chains in the country, and she was about to commit the most important madness of her life. She was going to pretend to be a housemaid in the home of the family of the man she intended to love forever. It all began 3 weeks earlier, when Rafael Montero, the kind architect she had met on a delayed flight to Lisbon, asked to introduce her to his mother and sister before taking any next step in their relationship. But Camilla knew from the way Rafael hesitated whenever he spoke about his family that there was something there that worried her. "My sister can be intense," he said, avoiding her eyes. "Beatrice has strong opinions about who is worthy of becoming part of our family." Camilla smiled, but inside, an alarm went off. She had seen that pattern before. Families who judge people by appearance, by background, by last name. And she, who had built her empire on her own, after growing up in a humble neighbourhood in the countryside, knew exactly how painful that kind of judgment could be. That was when the idea came to her. What if, before presenting herself as who she truly was, she entered that house without a title, without fortune, without an important last name? What if she saw with her own eyes how that family treated the people they considered invisible? Camilla knew it was risky, but she needed to understand one fundamental thing before joining her life to his. Did that family have true kindness, or only a polished politeness that disappeared in front of those they considered less important? She called the city's domestic employment agency and discovered that the Montero mansion needed a new cleaning assistant, hired for only 2 weeks to cover the leave of the regular employee. It was the perfect opportunity. Camilla traded her designer dresses for simple clothes, removed the diamond ring she had worn since closing the biggest deal of her career, tied her hair into a discreet bun, and presented herself at the service entrance, using her middle name, Camilla Souza, with no mention of the Andrade surname. No one there had any idea who she really was. The Montero family mansion was impressive, with vast gardens and an infinity pool. But what impressed Camilla was not the visible wealth. It was how quickly she became invisible. Mrs. Helena Montero, Rafael's mother, was distant but polite, treating the house staff with a lukewarm cordiality, the kind that exists only to avoid scandals. But it was Beatrice, Rafael's younger sister, who revealed the true temperature of that house. At 27, dressed only in designer clothes, she measured people's worth by the last name they carried. From the very first morning, she treated Camilla like an inconvenient object. "You," Beatrice said without even asking the new employee's name. "I don't repeat orders twice to people like you." Camilla lowered her eyes, swallowed the pride of a lifetime of achievements, and said only, "Yes, ma'am." Over the following days, Beatrice tested the limits of Camilla's patience in increasingly cruel ways, ordering her to redo tasks that were already perfect just to prove she had power. At one point, she deliberately spilled a glass of red wine over the Persian rug and ordered Camilla to clean it on her knees, watching with a satisfied smile. "People like you exist to serve people like me," Beatrice said. "That's how the world works, dear." Camilla squeezed the cloth in her hand and took a deep breath. She said nothing, but inside a decision was being made. Over the next few days, Camilla observed everything with heightened attention. She noticed how Helena, though distant, was never cruel, only unaware. She noticed how Rafael's father barely appeared, locked away in his office, during one of the rare moments when she crossed paths with Helena. In the kitchen, Camilla heard something that changed her understanding of the situation. "Beatrice has been like this since we lost a large part of the family fortune last year," Helena confided to a friend, unaware that the maid was nearby. "She's afraid of losing her status, so she clings to anything that makes her feel superior." That information hit Camilla like lightning. The family, which appeared to possess absolute wealth, was facing serious financial difficulties, hidden beneath an unsustainable facade of luxury. Beatrice's cruelty was not merely empty arrogance, it was the desperation of someone watching control slip from her hands. That did not excuse her cruelty, but it explained where it came from. If you feel that this story is about to turn completely upside down, leave a comment with the word strength and keep watching, because what comes next will completely change what you think about this family. The turning point happened during Helena's birthday dinner, an event that would gather the city's social elite, including investors the family needed to impress in an attempt to rebuild their struggling businesses. Beatrice demanded that Camilla serve the main table, dressed in a uniform handed to her at the last minute, poorly fitted. You will serve and you will smile, Beatrice ordered, adjusting the diamond necklace that had belonged to the family's grandmother. And if you spill a single drop of wine on this tablecloth, it will be the last thing you do in this house. Camilla accepted the task with the calm of someone who had already decided that this would be the last night of her disguise. During dinner, one of the most important investors of the evening watched Camilla for long minutes. There was something in her posture, in the way she moved with dignity, even under humiliation, that sparked his curiosity. It was at that moment that Beatrice decided to deliver her final act of cruelty. In front of the entire table, she pointed her finger at Camilla and said loudly, "Just look at her. People like that never get out of that place in life. Some people are born to serve, and that's perfectly fine. It's their destiny." An icy silence fell over the room. Helena opened her mouth to reprimand her daughter, but she did not find the words in time. And at that exact moment, the door opened, and Raphael walked in, accompanied by a man he proudly introduced as his future partner in a major international project. Raphael stopped in the middle of the room, confused, and then his eyes met Camilla's. She was dressed in a uniform, standing beside the main table. Time seemed to freeze. "Camilla." Raphael's voice came out as a mixture of shock and disbelief. "What is going on here?" Every gaze in the room shifted between Raphael and the maid he clearly knew by name. Beatrice, still not understanding the gravity of the situation, laughed nervously. "Raphael, you know the new maid? How strange." Raphael crossed the room and stopped in front of Camilla, ignoring the growing confusion around him. "She is not a maid," he said, his voice firm despite the shock. "She is the woman I love, and she is the owner of the Andrade Hotels Group." The entire room seemed to lose its breath at the same time. Beatrice turned visibly pale. The Andrade name was synonymous with financial strength, at a time when so many fortunes were vanishing. "That can't be true," Beatrice murmured, her voice already trembling. Camilla lifted her gaze, removed her apron with deliberate calm, and spoke, for the first time, with the voice of who she truly was. "It is true. My full name is Camilla Souza Andrade. I manage a hotel chain present in 12 countries. And I came here in disguise because I wanted to know the true essence of the family of the man I love before joining my life to his." The investor who had spoken with Raphael minutes earlier stepped forward. "You are Camilla Andrade. I was looking for a strategic partnership with Andrade Hotels for the project we were discussing, Raphael." The coincidence was extraordinary, but Camilla had already been following Raphael's sustainable architecture projects from a distance for months, even before meeting him on that flight. Beatrice, feeling the ground collapse beneath her feet, tried to recover. "I didn't know. How could I know? She was dressed like a maid." Camilla looked at her with a calm that weighed more than any shout. "That is exactly the problem. You only treat people well when you discover who they are or how much they have. True character is revealed in how you treat someone who apparently has nothing to offer you." Helena Montero, shaken, walked over to Camilla. "I am deeply sorry for my daughter's behaviour." "You were not cruel to me," Camilla replied. "You were too distant to notice what was happening under your own roof. But you were never cruel. That matters. You deliberately spilled wine and made me clean it on my knees," Camilla continued, her voice firm. "You said, in front of everyone, that people like me are born to serve. I am living proof that you were completely wrong. And what worries me most is how many other invisible people you have treated the same way without ever being confronted for it." The room remained in absolute silence. The investors present exchanged looks that made it clear how much that scene damaged the reputation the family was trying to preserve. Raphael, still processing the magnitude of what had happened, turned to his sister with deep disappointment. "Beatrice, I love you. You are my sister," he said, his voice controlled but unyielding. "But I knew you had this arrogant side, and I chose to ignore it, hoping it was just a phase. Today I saw the real size of it, and I can no longer pretend I didn't. I am going to introduce Camilla to our family as my future wife," Raphael continued, "and I hope you use this moment to rethink who you want to be, because the woman I intend to take to the altar just taught you a lesson in character that no amount of money can buy." The investor accompanying Raphael, impressed by the integrity demonstrated by both of them, seized the moment. "After seeing how you both handled this situation, I have even more confidence in closing a deal with your company. Character, in the end, is worth more than any facade." That sentence sealed Raphael's professional future right there, and showed Beatrice that arrogance had a real, tangible cost, not just a moral one. In the days following the dinner, the news spread through the city's social circles. Beatrice, once admired for her elegance, began to be regarded with suspicion at every event. Curiously, it was Camilla who took the most surprising step. She sought Helena out privately and revealed that she knew, through the financial market, that the family was facing real difficulties. Instead of using that to humiliate the family even further, she offered something unexpected: an investment partnership between Andrade Hotels and one of the Montero family's ventures, as long as certain conditions were met. "Why would you do this after everything?" Helena asked, emotional. "Because I didn't come here to destroy anyone," Camilla replied. "I came to understand what kind of family I was about to become part of. There is genuine kindness in this house, even if it has been overshadowed by fear and by a daughter who has not yet learned the true value of people. I believe in second chances as long as they come with real change." The condition was simple. Beatrice would spend 6 months volunteering in a social project run by the Andrade Foundation, which trained low-income women, exactly the kind of people she had despised throughout her adult life. At first, Beatrice saw the condition as a humiliating punishment. But as the weeks passed, something began to change. Working alongside women who faced real hardships, women who got up every day to support their families through jobs she would once have considered undignified, Beatrice began to see stories of strength and resilience she had never been taught to respect. One of the women in the project, Mrs. Marlene, who had worked as a housemaid for 30 years to raise 3 children on her own, said something to Beatrice that she would never forget. "Working with your hands has never been a shame. Shame is looking at someone who works and feeling that it makes you superior." By the 4th month, Beatrice asked, on her own initiative, to speak with Camilla personally. "I wanted to truly apologise," she said, her voice trembling. "I treated people as if they were worth less than me, when in truth, I was the one who needed to learn from them." "I accept your apology," Camilla said, "and the invitation to my wedding has always stood. The question was never whether you would be welcome. It was whether you would be willing to become someone who deserved to be there for the right reasons." 6 months after that dinner, Camilla and Raphael were married in an intimate ceremony, surrounded by true friends, family members who had learned deep lessons, and women from the social project who had become close friends of Beatrice. During the ceremony, it was Beatrice who asked to give a speech, surprising everyone. "A year ago, I would have looked at half the people in this room and decided in seconds who deserved my attention," Beatrice said, her voice filled with emotion. "I was completely wrong about what defines a person's worth. Camilla gave me the opportunity to change when I did not deserve any chance at all. Today I gain an example of how true power never needs to humiliate anyone in order to prove itself." Helena, watching with tears in her eyes, whispered to her husband, "We almost lost the chance to see our daughter become this person." The partnership between Andrade Hotels and the Montero family's projects prospered in the years that followed, but the true legacy of that episode was not financial. It was proof that dignity never depends on the position one holds, the uniform one wears, or the last name one carries. Years later, Camilla and Raphael founded a training program called See Another Reality, which placed young people from privileged families, for specific periods of time, in jobs they would normally judge as inferior, exactly as Camilla had done when she disguised herself as a maid. The goal was simple: to teach that true nobility was never found in a last name, a bank account, or a social position, but in how a person treats those who, at that moment, have no power over their life. Beatrice, transformed, became one of the program's most dedicated coordinators, telling her own story to hundreds of young people, always ending with the phrase she had learned from Mrs. Marlene: "Working with your hands has never been a shame. Shame is looking at someone who works and feeling that it makes you superior." And Camilla, whenever she was asked why she had risked everything by disguising herself in that mansion, always gave the same answer: "I needed to know whether the man I loved came from a family capable of true kindness, even when they thought no one important was watching. And I discovered that kindness can be taught, even when it seems to have been completely forgotten." If this story moved you, and if you believe that humility and dignity are worth more than any fortune or last name, leave your like, comment the word strength, and subscribe to the channel right now, because every week we bring stories of people who proved that true power never needs to humiliate anyone in order to stand tall. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today.